Welcome to the introduction of my website, Natural Disasters, Science, and the Role of Government, also known as HeyFloodGuy.com. I'm starting this site to search for a way to better communicate the value of science in helping to make our lives better and how government can play a role in that. My thought on starting this discussion is to better advertise the observable science that is out there, show how that data is used to make decisions, and how a collective group can make their lives better and avoid bad outcomes, also called government. I relate it to how a sports team can do better than everyone acting individually and without a common focus. But just the word government can cause some hesitation, as there are usually things in our lives where government involvement has led to a less desirable result. I think this side of government gets the most press, so the intent here is to try to better understand the good things the government does so we don't throw away the good with the parts that we want to see done better. I also want to make clear that all information I share here are just my thoughts and interpretations and should not be construed as representing any government or agency. The goal is also to find a way to dialogue about these topics to improve all of our understandings and not to be the expert. I would also like to frame the conversation away from politics or discussion about people or parties. If the chats go there, I will probably do my best to identify the technical question or thought and try to keep that, but reframe it without the politics. If I can't figure out how to do that, I may remove the comment. It is not to stop the dialogue, just try to push it where it can be productive. This is also why I want to focus on the science, laws, and regulations, and not the motives behind the beliefs in those things. To start though, I want to provide an example of the benefits of understanding disasters and what can be done to help improve our lives and reduce our exposure to them. One of the best parts of the human brain and human existence is the ability to learn from what we've observed. Why is this one building still standing while everything else around it has been demolished? If everyone had built with the same techniques, would this area not have seen the devastation that it did? No two flood events or wind events or earthquakes are ever exactly the same, but we can determine the forces that these events can create. We can also see the general scale of difference. So I'm going to provide an example that I came across a while back that was pretty striking to me. So I'm going to be talking about earthquakes. So I'm showing this chart here where on the left side it shows the magnitude of the earthquake anywhere from a 2.0 all the way up to a 10.0. On the far right side, for scale in terms of the energy released from these earthquakes in kilograms of explosive, that's going to be on the right side. And as you can see, it gets kind of astronomically larger as you go up. In the middle, it shows a number of key earthquakes and how they fit on this scale. And it also gives you a perspective on how many you see in the world in any given year. So you can see that there's basically 1 million earthquakes at the 2.0 level on average per year, whereas there's only about one on average at the 8.0 level. So I'm going to focus though on two earthquakes on this chart. One is the Sichuan province one of 2008, which was a 7.9 earthquake, so about 50 billion kilograms of explosive released, and then the Chile 2010 earthquake, which was a 8.8 earthquake, and so that was more like 1 trillion kilograms of explosive kind of equivalent energy release. And one other thing just to note is there was another Chile earthquake in 1960 that was at the 9.5 scale. So that was significantly larger. And I'll bring that up more in the next slide. So in 2008, there was that 7.9 earthquake in the Sichuan province in China. There was roughly 15 million people in the affected area. The earthquake resulted in over 69,000 dead, 80% of the buildings were destroyed, and 7,000 school buildings had collapsed. In 2010, Chile saw that 8.8 earthquake. Despite the Chile earthquake having 20 times the energy release, the communities only saw 1% of the fatalities and a significant reduction in buildings lost. Why is that? Within 1,000 miles of that Chile earthquake location, they had seen roughly 10 earthquakes of magnitude 7.7 or higher in the past century, including a 9.5 in 1960, which is the greatest measured earthquake in the world. After a December 1928 earthquake measuring 7.7 on the Richter scale, the Chilean government passed a law in 1929 establishing a committee to start looking at building codes. And by 1935, Chile's first national building code was enacted. There have been a number of revisions since based on the new information collected on more recent earthquakes. A lot of this had to do with going with more ductile structures that can bend and move with an earthquake opposed to brittle structures that tend to break and collapse when shaken. The U.S. has gone through its own evolution. The Uniform Building Code that has been used in the Western U.S. was first published in 1927, and some of this has morphed into the international building codes that the International Code Council puts out today. I mention this because I feel when we look at examples like this, I do think the overwhelming majority of Americans want this type of support from their government. Avoiding or greatly reducing this type of loss not only feels morally right, but it also results in significant savings to everyone from the alternative. A lot of laws that have been passed by Congress have pretty strong support generally, but often the regulations to enforce these laws need some work to make sure they are workable in the diversity of our communities. I think a simple example are the laws related to speed. Most people would say that driving should be done in a way that keeps everyone reasonably safe. But that standard is going to be different in an open highway versus through a school zone. Other regulations may need to be adapted from urban to rural environments, mountainous to flat terrain, or other parts of our nation's variability that make this country so interesting. Because my background has revolved around the science that helps communities be safer in the face of natural disasters and the laws and regulations that allow our local governments access to this help, I have a few ways where I'm trying to facilitate a discussion on how to best to build off of what we've learned. I also am trying to do it in ways that hopefully can be interesting, educational, and maybe a little fun. The first is a website that includes blogs on putting a flood in perspective, talking about experiences with different watersheds and the challenges there are to getting to a safer place for communities, and starting a conversation on making a natural world fantasy league to test our understanding of the world around us through scientific observations. The other method is to share some of these stories on YouTube that come from the backgrounds we have in working on these types of issues, the challenges that are faced from natural disasters, and how solutions can be different when the communities are different, even when the disaster type may be the same. So that is the gist of what this is about. If this is of interest, click on the blog section and join the chat. Let me know what you think. Are there other websites, videos, blogs that people should know about that talk about similar things? The goal isn't just to make this about my sites or tools, but to learn about all that is out there on science related to the natural world and how we can make things better from that. So HeyFloodGuy.com is the website, and thank you very much for listening.